Hey everyone, welcome to our new episode of Dakota Boys Talk Movies. This is Steven.
This is Dakota.
And tonight we're going to do something a little different. We're not going to review a new movie that's in theaters, but we are going to talk about some movies that we love that we feel like a lot of other people kind of not love. I don't know if I'd always say hate. Sometimes maybe it's just like they dislike it immensely. But in some cases, I think the movies we talk about, a lot of people maybe just hate them, too.
Some of the ones on my list, I know, were generally disliked by critics.
Yeah, mine too.
I can't think of a single good review I saw for one of them, and it was pretty recent.
Yeah, if Rotten Tomatoes were a big deal and the three movies I have were out, they'd probably all be definitely under 50%.
Yeah, I know one of the movies on my list was actually called out for being racist and sexist. So
yeah, that's how you know it's a good one.
They don't make movies like that anymore, ladies and gents.
Miss those days. Miss those coke-fueled days.
Back when men were men and women were women.
And women were objects. Oh, man.
We are so horrible.
Yeah. For those of you who aren't getting it, don't freak out. We're being facetious. It's all fun and games. We don't condone any of those things.
Except the coke using. I drink.
Hey, some good movies were made in those days. That's all I'm saying. Oh, God. Life. Okay. With that, we're just gonna get right into it. We're apparently already fueled ourselves here with something.
All right, hit us with your best shot, Steven.
And so we're each gonna just give kind of three, like we've done kind of typically with these in the past, where we kind of pick 3 or 5 or whatever. We're doing 3. So the first one I'm throwing out there, I'm just gonna go ahead and get the hate ball rolling with Paul Blart Mall Cop.
Ah, yes.
I'm just gonna go ahead and first I'll just lay out there. I can't not like Kevin James. I don't know. It just seems like whatever he's in, I'm okay with him. A lot of people, every time they see his face, they want to just it seems like they just want to shoot him or stab him or something. People get very violent when they see Kevin James. I don't know what it is.
I guess he just has a face that just sends people into a rage.
I don't know. I'm okay with him. I didn't mind King of Queens. But I just feel like as far as Kevin James is getting to be Kevin James in a movie, Paul Blart is his pinnacle of that. It's dumb, but it's kind of an endearing dumb.
Yeah, it's his magnum opus, people.
It kind of is his magnum opus. Yeah, and it was one of those movies where it didn't do terribly great in theaters, and I think the reason it got a sequel was that the DVD sales kind of picked up and gave it steam again, which happens sometimes with especially comedies, where it's like they don't necessarily do the hottest in theaters, but then their DVD sales are what kind of save them, and then the studios are kind of like, well, God, let's do another one. People are still talking about it, and people are still, renting it or buying it or things like that, and so. Kind of similar thing happened where I'm surprised we haven't gotten an Elf sequel, because Elf was one where it did okay in theaters, but then it really picked up when the DVD came out.
From what I heard, this is just me throwing this out there. Apparently, Will Ferrell thinks that everything was said with the first one.
Well, it could be.
And
I think he just doesn't want to do it again.
Yeah,
but Paul Blart, really, it's very simple. He's playing just the typical schmuck who's a single dad with a daughter, who's a security guard at a mall, and he absolutely loves his job, and you could argue takes it a little too seriously, but they do set up there's a justification that the reason he takes it seriously is that he wants to be an actual police officer but keeps failing in the training process, qualifying process. Not necessarily because he's fat. They show him have the athletic ability. They had to make it something dumber than that. He's hypoglycemic, where he just passes out from lack of sugar in his blood. And so, yeah, it's kind of silly, obviously. But where this movie kind of picks up the steam and becomes kind of a really ridiculous, comedic, PG-level Die Hard it kind of becomes like a PG level Die Hard in a mall, is that these burglars set up this whole scheme to steal all the credit card transactions that happened on Black Friday shopping. So, like, the mall has all the big Black Friday shopping, and they steal all the numbers to get all the money through the credit card machines. And that's kind of the thing where he realizes this is going and tries to stop him. And to make it even more ridiculous, they have a lot of the robbers be like parkour people and skateboard BMX people. So they're like flying off things, and I don't know. I watch this movie not often, not frequently, but here and there because I do own it, of course. And it's just fun every time I watch it. I just find it very enjoyable. So that's my first one, Paul Blart Mall Cop. And I would say if you haven't watched this because people just told you it's stupid, I would say maybe give it a shot if you're kind of in for just like a dumb comedy. So, Dakota, what do you got?
All right, I'm going to start this list off strong.
Keep that hate ball rolling, baby.
This movie, when it came out, was so just universally hated. It bombed so hard in the box office that it's funny that I had a film on my list, but then I realized I reviewed it already. And that was Terminator Genisys. I guess this one tops Terminator Genisys in both just the bomb they let off when it came out and just the hateability.
This movie is basically a big fart, is what you're saying.
Yeah, people don't like it. I am referring to King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. This came out literally within the last year. And really, there wasn't a lot of build-up to this, like there probably should have maybe have been, because the movie, I remember I was seeing trailers for it, and the trailers weren't really telling you anything other than the fact that, it's a King Arthur movie, and it has Charlie Hunman in it. Some people's Christian Grey, I guess, but...
Let's not go there.
Yeah, let's stay away from that. Had Jude Law, Digimon Hansu was in this, Eric Bana, kind of some big names attached to this movie, and apparently, I believe it was Warner Brothers who put this out.
Yeah, I think it is.
Spent so much money, on marketing trying to get this up, but I barely remember seeing anything.
I don't remember hardly any marketing.
Yeah, there was a trailer they put out like a few months before the movie.
Yeah.
But it was so just like random, the most random moments from the movie.
Yeah, the trailer did not help me gain any excitement for wanting to see it at all.
Yeah, but I kind of missed it in theaters. It came out, I believe, in the summer.
Yeah, it was a summer movie. I believe it was even a May movie.
Yeah. So it kind of came, people just tore this movie apart, critic-wise. They just completely lambasted the thing. And, a couple months go by, comes out on DVD, and guess who has a free rental? And it was...
And as Dakota has always let you know, he likes to use his free rental on ones that are junk or that he thinks are going to be junk.
And, there was no good options in the box that night, people. I'm like, well, might as well give this a whirl. So I took it, I got it, brought it home, watched it, and I was actually pretty amazed. This movie was made by Guy Ritchie, who, honestly, I think he's very kind of hit or miss. He either misses really, really, really
when
badly.
When he misses, it's like a full-on shooting in the other direction miss.
But when he's spot on, it's like you're just like, oh, man, that was a really good movie.
I feel like, for me, this is just me personally, I feel like even when Guy Ritchie hits the mark, it's still like just somewhere on the target. It's not necessarily a bullseye.
Oh, man. I guess it's been a while since he's had like a big hit.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie, just some kind of backstory here. I have always been just a huge kind of fan of the King Arthur mythos. This idea of putting on this armor and charging at another man and possibly killing that man has always excited me since I was just a wee boy.
A wee lass.
Don't know why. It just has. Like, yeah. Why did I have to miss out on that? I just got, like, born in the 80s with this technology and crap.
Oh, man. Why couldn't I have been born where there was... You died from gangrene and all those fun things.
That's right. Every meal with some porridge and some bread, and you loved it. But kind of back to this movie. This is actually, for a movie that bombed so bad, in my opinion, a really well-made one. Jude Law does a really good job playing the villain of the movie. There's kind of a really cool scene that opens up the film where these characters are on top of these giant friggin' elephants and they're charging at this castle. And the kind of more fantastical elements of the movie I thought were pretty awesome. You find this, I think it's supposed to be a demon kind of floating under this castle in some water, and you find out she grants wishes, and one of the wishes is this kind of giant, evil-looking, satanic dude comes out and kills you with an axe, no less. That
seems legit.
Yeah, I'd be afraid.
Yeah.
I mean, oh man, I'd know the end was coming if he showed up. Like, yep, here it is, the sweet release of death. But yeah, there's just the qualms I kind of have about the story. It's kind of drug on a little too much, and this movie ends in a way that it just implies that there's another one coming, which this movie bombed so hard. I'm pretty sure there's not going to be a King Arthur movie for the next 20 years. Those are my
anymore. They only like to wait 5 or 6 years to reboot. So.
Yeah. But I would definitely. I have been recommending this movie to people. I haven't had anyone really come back and be like, "Yeah, that was a garbage movie." Like even people I know who I've recommended it to have liked it. But it's just I feel like critics were unfairly harsh to this movie, and I just don't understand that. But yeah, that's the first one on my list.
Okay, so that was King Arthur: Legend of the Sword. Came out last summer, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
very recent.
My next one is not so recent. I believe it was like I don't know, 2008. I want to say this next movie I'm talking about came out. 2008, and it was the movie Get Smart, the Steve Carell, Anne Hathaway 2008 film. That also, like I said, Dwayne Johnson and who was the bad guy? Terrence Stamp. I don't remember who played the villain. It was one that I think it was like mediocre at best as far as reception, and that's critics and audiences, where it was like kind of in that halvesy thing where it was just kind of there, and didn't do well. Ironically, I think one of the higher critic reviews I've ever seen was Roger Ebert gave it a pretty high review. Get Smart, when it came out, that he thought it was, that he admitted that it was silly, but that it was funny and looked good, and kind of things like that, where he still gave it a high grade, and that he thought everyone was cast well. Carell was a good Maxwell Smart. Hathaway did well playing Agent 99. All those types of things. And so, yeah, but overall, though, it was just kind of like, it was like, in that, like I said, like kind of 50-50. But I thought this movie was just, I still do. I still find this movie very funny and enjoyable. And maybe part of it is that this could, I guess now that I say this could make me hate this movie. I like the old TV show a lot. I I enjoy that. And I suppose maybe some people who are like real purists, the old TV show would make them maybe hate this, that they like tried to modernize it the way they did. But I found it fun and a cool way to kind of to modernize it. And I thought, as far as who could play Maxwell Smart, I thought Steve Carell was a great choice for that. I thought he pulled it off well, kind of being that Maxwell Smart is an interesting character in that he's an idiot, but he also does get himself out of certain situations. and that's how Steve Carell, I thought he pulled it off well in this movie, where he was an idiot that caused a lot of problems like Don Adams did in the old TV show, but at the same time was still able to fight or do different spy skills at times that worked out. And so I don't know, I just found it really fun, and it was cool to see Alan Arkin played the chief in this, and it was I thought he was really funny playing the chief, and they had James Caan as the president, and this was during the near the end of the George W. Bush years, and they kind of had James Caan, I feel like, kind of riff maybe George W. Bush a little bit, and just kind of how he acted, but it was just kind of fun what they did with it, and it just felt like everybody's having a lot of fun being in the movie too, and yeah, I would say that like if this is another one where if you've never checked it out, this is just kind of a fun watch. It doesn't really, change the way you look at movies or anything, but another one that's just kind of a fun watch, and it's just kind of cool to see some of these people who have now gone on to do more serious roles. Like, Hathaway's kind of started dipping that. And then even Steve Carell, to most people, he's either Michael Scott, who is now acting in all these big movies. But this was kind of in that time where he was still kind of in that limbo of starting to transition out of The Office. He was starting to get to that point a little bit. He was still in The Office at this point. But when his movie career was starting to be more of a thing, but he wasn't quite like a bigger movie actor like he is now. And so it's kind of cool to see him in this phase, kind of showing his chops in a movie like this. And so just kind of, I think it deserves a little more attention than it gets, especially if you're a fan of just like spy spoof stuff too, things like that.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Okay, I remember The Rock is in this movie.
Yes.
But I can't really remember anything he did other than the scene with the stapler. Was it the stapler?
Yeah, he slams this guy in the head with a stapler.
That was funny. That's all I can remember about The Rock.
Yeah, yeah. And he's kind of like, he's in it at the get-go, and he's kind of the agent that Max looks up to because he's like the really cool like superstar agent, and he's big and muscular, obviously, because he's Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. But then he kind of, his role kind of ends up, there's like a middle part where he's not involved, then he kind of comes back into play near the end or whatever. Because this was kind of before The Rock always had to be a star in the movie. And so that's kind of another interesting thing about this movie too, is that The Rock's in it, but he's not like the star. Whereas now he's always like the star.
Yeah. And
so that's kind of cool to see too, or kind of interesting to see him taking like this kind of supporting role. So yeah, so that makes it kind of fun too, is just kind of seeing this between time for some of these actors in this movie too. So but yeah, I would say definitely give it a watch. I haven't watched it super recently, but other than maybe like a few little things, it would still hold up as far as like technology. There's not really any references that date it or music or anything, so still easily watchable. So yeah, it's my next one that I really like, that seems like just not overall real loved. So Dakota, what's your next one?
All right, friends, travel back with me to the year of 1990.
Do the Wayne's World.
1990, what a great year.
Was it?
I don't know. I was just a small child at this point.
Yeah.
My only care was Legos and Play-Doh. and macaroni and cheese.
Mm-hmm. Mine was, yeah. Yeah, well, but mac and cheese would have been on my list. Yeah.
That was the year one of the
Loving my big wheel. That
yeah.
would've-
That was the year one of the greatest sequels to any movie to ever come out. I'm referring, of course, to Gremlins 2, the new batch.
Hey, Gremlins 2, the new batch.
Probably the only person to ever admit to say that this is one of the greatest sequels of all time. Only because I feel like it outdoes the original in so many ways.
In a lot of ways. In a lot of ways it does. Yes.
Hey, any movie that has Tony Robbins as a talking little monster that's very eloquent is going to be up there, man. Gonna be up there.
And this is like one of the only movies Leonard Maltin is in.
Yeah. And he's bashing the first one in it.
Yeah. Well, do you know the joke behind that?
Yeah, I do.
Like how he's friends with the director
Yeah.
and he was hard on the first one? Yeah, I thought that was
Yeah.
pretty great. Can I kill you in my sequel? That's so great.
And hey, at least he was nice enough to go with it.
Heck yeah.
Anyway, Gremlins, great movie. I think we talked about it a few times on the show, on the cast, the podcast. But yeah, some of you might be even saying to yourselves, they made a sequel to Gremlins? Because I've gotten that reaction out of a few people.
It is weird how some people don't know this movie exists.
Yeah, and I think it's just due to the fact that TNT for a while was airing this like crazy, and then they just stopped, and then they've never aired it again. I don't know what channel would have even shown it if we got any big TV watchers out there. But this movie kind of picks up basically where a few years after the events of the first one, you find the main character has moved to the big city of New York, and that'd be Billy Peltzer, and he brought his main gal Phoebe, Kate along. She was also in the first one. I don't think they were dating in the first one. I think one of them had a crush on the other. You can never tell who. But they're basically living their life. They're engaged. Then the company they work for kind of apparently starts this really aggressive construction project in Chinatown. And through some weird series of events, Mogwai ends up in the clutches of these scientists that also work for the same company that Billy's working at. Yeah, apparently this company has its fingers in many pies. And he's taken to this lab, and he's experimented on. And basically, water spilled on him, and, there's more little evil Mogwai. This time they're black and white instead of brown and white like they were in the first one. And then hijinks kind of just ensue, and a lot of gruesome death. I watched this. I finally got this on Blu-ray a few months ago, and I watched it, and I was a little shocked at how violent this movie is.
Is it PG-13 or R?
I think it's PG-13.
I think it is. I don't think they made it.
This
R.
is back in the 90s, though, where you get away with a lot.
It wasn't
before.
well, and it wasn't all like CGI, so it was like practical.
Yeah, you could like shoot like 3 people in your movie, and as long as there was like very little blood, it's like, yeah, it's still PG-13.
Yeah,
and you could show one set of bare breasts, I think and you could use I think the F word once, but that's still a thing. You go over once, your movie becomes R.
yeah. The whole breast F word thing has always been weird to me, but anyway, yeah.
The 90s were a weird time.
Yeah,
people.
what's interesting about Gremlins 2 is how it goes, as they say nowadays, very meta.
Yes.
Like it's like aware that it is a movie throughout, and so it makes it kind of kind of strange and in a way very, very much more entertaining.
Yeah, and oddly enough, this is where things get really crazy. John Glover, who's been in various things, he was Lex Luthor's dad in Smallville. He's in just so many things I can't list him. He actually plays a real estate developer that was inspired by Donald Trump. You find out all these characters are working in this skyscraper, and it's owned by Donald Glover's character. And this is where the main action of the story happens, and they basically all get stuck in there in this building with all these gremlins. And for me, the thing I loved about this movie is not only did it mingle the gremlins with Christopher Lee, all these other great actors. There's even a Batman reference in this movie, but they just go crazy with the gremlins because the gremlins get their hands on these weird, I don't want to call them potions, but these chemicals.
But they're potions?
These chemicals that are derived from like a bat, a spider, just all these things, and they take them, and then it transforms them, and it's a little freaky. Actually, it's a lot of freaky, really, and just makes the movie that much more intense. And yeah, I watched this with my girlfriend, and it got to the point where she gathered up her blanket and kind of just like wrapped it around her to the point where she could barely see the screen just in case anything crazy happened. But I was loving it. Yeah, definitely a great movie. Oddly enough, I don't remember all the murder. Yeah, not sure why that is either.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. You don't remember all the murder? That's basically what they do.
Yeah.
Go.
All right, Steven, enough of my rambling about the greatest sequel of all time.
Oh, man.
Just kidding. That's Terminator 2, guys. Sorry.
So we're going into our number ones now, and I couldn't think of a better number one than a movie that I hold in probably way higher esteem than the movie deserves or even attempted to be. Yet I just find this movie so incredibly entertaining and amazing, even endearing in its bizarreness.
Is it Caddyshack 2?
It is not Caddyshack 2.
Oh, nuts.
The true greatest sequel ever made. Yeah, right. No, I am, of course, referring to the movie. It came out in the year 1999, a movie where every great game-changing movie came out in. There were a lot of game-changing movies came out that year, and this was just one of them. It was a movie that should have come out in 1998, actually, but due to test screenings, making it being called, and I quote, unwatchable.
Oh, wow.
It was reshot by a different director, rescored with a new composer, and it is rumored to be the biggest flop, but it's not one of the biggest budget flops for what they spent on the movie and what it made. But all of these things are leading to me saying that my movie is The 13th Warrior.
Ah, yes.
And some of you, like Dakota with Gremlins 2, are probably going, what in the world is The 13th Warrior? There's a movie called The 13th Warrior. Yes, there is. It was a crazy action movie of sorts that, like I said, was based on Michael Crichton's book, Eaters of the Dead, which Michael Crichton basically took someone who actually existed, a Muslim man who kind of went around and was kind of he wasn't really an explorer. He was more of like a guy who just traveled and then journaled his experiences traveling, a Muslim man. He basically took that guy and then made up his own history for how he interacted with these Vikings and ended up going on an adventure with them where they had to kill or go after help this village get rid of this monster problem they were having. And so he through a series of circumstances ends up being their 13th warrior. These 12 Vikings volunteer to go and help this village who are battling this weird monster issue. Like these creatures are attacking our village and we can't stop them. We need warriors to come help us. So these Vikings, all kind of Northmen, all kind of volunteer. But then through some witches kind of prophecy casting of dice thing. She goes, "There must be a 13th who's an outsider," type thing. And he's like, "I'm not a fighter, I'm a lover," type thing. But he still ends up going. And as we like to say, hijinks ensue. But here's where this movie gets crazy. It stars Antonio Banderas, a man who is Spaniard, and he's playing an Iraqi Muslim in this movie. That right there is like, what is happening? But you kind of look past it.
Yeah.
You're kind of like, whatever, let's go for it. And then it stars all these other guys that you've really never heard of that play the Norseman, except I think one of them is like Tony Curran, who's kind of in stuff now. But otherwise, it's like Omar Sharif has a little role, but he's not one of the Northmen because he's too old. But all the Northmen are like guys that like maybe you recognize their faces, but you probably don't. And then so you just kind of follow their adventure to figure out where these creatures are coming from, what they are, and how they're going to stop them. And so it ends up being this kind of just crazy, weird Viking time set adventure. Now, here's the thing that's crazy about this movie. Like I said, so John McTiernan, the director of Die Hard, Predator, what else has he done big?
Pretty much every popular action movie you could think of except The Matrix. Really.
Yeah, he did a lot of the 80s action movies that people love. Like John McTiernan did, a chunk of them. He did this movie, and he did the version that was considered unwatchable. So Michael Crichton, the author of the book, who had previously directed a movie, I think he directed his own Andromeda Strain movie from the 70s or something.
Yeah.
He came in and did reshoots, and then threw out the score that everybody hated, the musical score that Graham Revell did, and had Jerry Goldsmith do the new score, which I like the music in this movie, but I like Jerry Goldsmith. So I would say maybe that did help. And they kind of just reshot it and made it work so where it became a 99 release instead of a 98 release. And then they just changed a few other key things to kind of tighten up the movie a little bit. So I don't know what else to say about this movie except if you don't mind like crazy like sword violence, this movie is nuts and kind of sweet.
I'm just going to throw some random stuff out there. I also really like this movie. So I guess, I don't know, we're double teaming this movie here. Yeah, some things that I remember about it. When I found out that when John McTiernan's cut apparently wasn't up to snuff and that Michael Crichton had kind of come in and did this, like, I was actually a little shocked because there are so many tropes in this movie from 80s, 90 action flicks.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the kind of choppy, kind of like uneven cuts, like where you see a guy like falling forward and the next thing you know, he's like 10 feet away hitting the ground just covered in blood.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Just kind of the way the fight scenes were filmed, you could tell that was definitely John McTiernan. And it really makes me wish they would just release the Tiernan version.
I think everybody's just kind of forgotten about this, but that's why I want to bring attention to it.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is basically what Michael Crichton was doing with the book was it was kind of his version of the Beowulf story. And they just kind of tweaked it a little bit because they call, instead of Beowulf, the main Viking guy is Bolvi, they call him. So it's kind of a play on Beowulf. And then instead of the Grendel, it's the Wendel. It's kind of the creature.
Yeah.
And there's kind of like all these kind of like play. It's kind of a play on the and maybe that's why I like it, because I've always been intrigued by the Beowulf epic.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's where I find my intrigue in this movie.
Yeah, even King Hrothgar and his big imposing castle palace is kind of referenced in the book from what I remember.
Yeah, the one of the other main differences between the movie and the book is that there's parts in the book that get the main Muslim Ibn Falad, or however you say his name. He kind of takes advantage of a lot of women, and so do the Vikings in the book. And in the movie, they just kind of disregard that. And I think that was a smart move because I think that would make him seem a little more harder to be kind of like the hero you're rooting for if he's always just like grabbing women and things like that. But yeah, I don't know. It just like, and again, this movie didn't flop as bad as people think. There were certain numbers that got a little escalated. It was a flop, but it wasn't like the biggest flop ever like it kind of gets made out to be. And like I said, it's kind of amazing when you actually watch it, get to the end, you're like, that was still kind of a fun adventure movie.
Yeah, it's I always kind of think back to the trailer. I remember seeing the trailer on like, you bought a movie, you bring it home,
Yep.
pop it in the VCR, and the trailer would start playing. I remember the trailer and the trailer was so different from what was actually in the movie.
Sure.
It makes me believe that it was based off of whatever John McTiernan had thrown in the movie.
I have a feeling that as far as your McTiernan cut thing, I have a feeling the McTiernan cut stuck a little closer to certain things in the book. Maybe.
Yeah, like the main character kind of being a little bit of a coward.
Yeah, like, and he's still like a coward who learns in the movie, but he's a little more apt at things in the movie in the end. But I just have a feeling that maybe because the 13th Warrior, the movie that you can see, is very brisk. Like, it's not like it's short necessarily. It's not long, but it's not like super short either. But I just wonder if the McTiernan version was like longer too. Just like just had more than it needed to from the book,
Yeah.
And so maybe that was part of what Crichton did was he came in and was like, okay, these screenings are going terrible. I'm just going to have to like make a quicker adventure cut of this, And so, and it still kind of works. I think the book kind of gets into a lot of details that the movie didn't necessarily need for what the movie ended up being. But like you said, it would be interesting to see what McTiernan did, just because McTiernan is kind of a lauded director for what he did with like we said, with Predator and with Die Hard, and so it would be slightly fascinating to see what that was, if it even exists anymore. Who knows?
I'm sure they got it in a vault somewhere.
Antonio Banderas bought all the copies and has them just in case. There's like, he probably has hope that somebody will care again.
Yeah, it's the weirdest things, sometimes people don't think that these movie studios keep stuff around. And then, Wonder Woman comes out and all of a sudden Joss Whedon's script is leaked online. It's like, yeah, I'm sure that was a happy little accident.
Yeah, happy little accident.
And then people read the script and are like, wow, that was actually really bad. Thank God we got this movie instead.
Yeah. Oh, man. But yeah, that's just one I have to throw out there in times like this where it's like, like I said, I just love a good adventure movie, and this is just always one I think of. So that's 13th Warrior. It's my number one. Dakota, let's go over though, and what's your last movie that you just love that is kind of lost and or hated?
Oh man, this one, I don't know. FX kind of, as I recall, FX showed the crap out of this a while back. My number one is SWAT. $100 million.
$100 million. I always think of that too, because the trailer always like focused on that. Who was that guy? He was like some Spanish dude.
Oliver Martinez, I believe.
Yeah.
I think his claim to fame was he was the guy in the Richard Gere movie where the wife is cheating on him and he handles it badly.
Oh, is he in that Unfaithful?
Yes.
Okay.
Wow, that was such a hard word to remember. But it shouldn't
the
have been.
The movie where she's unfaithful. What's that movie called? Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, he sure.
This movie had what was at the time, even to this day, if this cast was like headlining a movie, it'd be big news.
Yeah, that's kind of had like a lot of them were still up and comers at the time, except for Sam Jackson.
Yeah, we got Sam Jackson, Colin Farrell, Michelle Rodriguez, LL Cool J,
Okay, I forgot that he was in this.
and a very young and dashing Jeremy Renner. I think this was actually the first movie I saw him in.
This is the first movie I remember him in. I remember seeing him in. He might have been in stuff before this, but yeah, this is the first movie where I was like, who's that guy? Man, I hate him. Because he's pretty hateable in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, he really goes the extra mile to make you want to punch him in the face. This movie, I will say this, and it's the only thing me and the critics will probably agree on. There's no story to this.
Nope.
It's just, it's about I believe kind of like a hostage rescue guy. Him and his partner, the main guy is of course played by Colin Farrell, everyone's favorite actor at the moment, and Jeremy Renner's his partner, the kind of hot-headed, brash one. There's a hostage situation. They go in and try to basically remove the bad guys from the equation, and stuff goes completely sideways as it does. The two get into quite a bit of trouble. Colin Farrell's character, of course, is truthful about what happened. Jeremy Renner's character is then fired from the police, then his life just kind of spirals out of control, but we find out about that later. So Colin Farrell kind of has a bad reputation, and then in comes Samuel L. Jackson's character, and this is the coolest name of any character I think ever. Sergeant Hondo Harrelson. Sergeant Hondo Harrelson, yeah. Doesn't get more American than that, boys.
It's pretty American, especially for an Irishman.
Oh, anyway, you find out that he's starting a SWAT team, and he only wants the best. And Colin Farrell just happens to be that best, even though he's kind of grumpy in the beginning of this movie. He is. He tries to be. His character's so dour.
Yeah.
I don't get it. It's like maybe Henry Cavill studied this movie before
Could've.
starting Man of Steel.
Like, how do I always just be like just grumpy for no reason?
How do I frown so hard like I just suck the happiness out of the room? All right, it's enough Henry Cavill bashing. But he's joined by a few other characters. Michelle Rodriguez's character is
Playing a tough girl again, of course.
Oh, doesn't she always?
That's what I said. Again, of course.
I want to see a vulnerable Michelle Rodriguez. Where are we going to get that?
I don't know if she's able to make that face.
Oh, man.
Her face is always like pouty, like pursed lips.
Michelle Rodriguez is one of those members. So is LL Cool J. And, I basically remember this movie, and this probably goes into why critics hate it. It was a little too macho. I remember Sergeant Hondo Harrelson, one of his taglines is, "They only roll in the movies. You do that in real life, you end up dead." Or something along those lines.
I know. That was, I think, this movie is like, it's just like, yeah, cops with guns, and it's just like, cops with guns is not a thing people like to talk about now too much.
Yeah. And I still don't understand why people deem this racist and sexist. Yeah, granted, there's a lot of machismo in here, but I don't think any less or more than, say, like Predator. Actually, there's way more machismo in Predator.
A lot more testosterone in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. SWAT is just kind of, I think it was just another case of it was just such a cheesy action flick.
Yeah.
That it was hard for people to really, like, latch on to it.
Yeah, I don't think this movie would ever get made now or possibly in the future.
What's funny is this has had, like 2 or 3 straight to DVD, like, they're not really, like, sequels, but they're, like,
Yeah,
They're like SWAT movies.
yeah, it's like, oh, my cousin was. You find out one character is like the cousin of the guy from the first.
Yeah,
film or
there's like
something.
really like loose connections or something, but it's like
Yeah,
my mother's brother's sister's cousin was on that team. Yeah, it's just kind of funny how it helped that straight to DVD movie work.
yeah. It's I'm gonna hold on. Let me see who directed this.
It's okay.
I don't know if it was anyone of note.
No, it was directed by Clark Johnson.
Clark Johnson.
And he only did one more like movie after this. Otherwise, all he directs is like TV show episodes.
Oh wow.
Yeah, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, you gain a lot of clout and work and pay probably doing TV shows. But yeah, he did. But the movie he did after this was The Sentinel, that weird Michael Douglas movie that was like in 2004 or 5. And I think he's also like an actor too, and I think he's done more acting than he has directing. But he does a lot of TV show directing.
Yeah, it's like I said, FX was showing this forever. I don't think I've ever seen it on Netflix or Hulu.
No, the weird straight to DVD ones have been on Netflix, I know.
No.
But this one, if it was, I probably would have watched it. Because I'm like you, I'm kind of like, yeah, that movie's cool. And I love how like Jeremy Renner's name is like Gamble, and he's got like, doesn't he have like a tattoo of like a spade or something on his arm, or a like a card?
Yeah,
is it the Ace of Spades or something like that? But it's kind of one of those where like they're learning how to be a SWAT team, so like part of the movie's training, and then it's like this $100 million. This one rich bad guy gets caught, and he says, if anybody saves me, I'll pay them this $100 million. And so it's like all these different bad guys are basically in the SWAT. And so it's kind of, in a way, it's kind of a ridiculous plot.
Yeah,
but it's fun.
There's some great action set pieces
in
here.
Fun. It's fun.
I mean, it's not like, I don't know, like a made-for-TV movie where, there's like cops shooting and then like you see people fall and there's no blood. It's pretty action-packed.
Yeah, like what's weird is like, there was a few years after this, there was that movie with Chris Pine and Denzel directed by Tony Scott called Unstoppable.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was more of a TV movie, where this was more action-packed than a Tony Scott Denzel Washington movie.
Yeah, I'd say this is more action-packed than Man on Fire.
Or Unstoppable. Like, Unstoppable was supposed to be like this big like train on the run, like runaway train type movie. Yeah, and so it is it's kind of like 13th Warrior, where it's like, it's weirdly watchable, just in like, I'm going to keep watching this.
Yeah, and like I said, it's been called sexist, racist. I mean, I remember this is about that time.
So why though? Like because of how the black people and the women act?
Or apparently there's stereotypes or something. I don't understand. And it's definitely a movie that probably wasn't well liked on the East or West Coast because of basically each character's in love with guns.
Now I feel like I need to go on a long walk and try to figure out if I'm a racist and a sexist, because I guess I didn't think about how this movie is.
No, you're fine, Steven. Come on.
I don't know. I'm a little concerned. No, just kidding. Oh man, yeah, SWAT. That's definitely one to check out. Like, even though it's not great, it's just like, it's just kind of funny even to see like the Fast and Furious, Michelle Rodriguez in this. Samuel Jackson before Nick Fury, Colin Farrell before he was kind of like not in movies for a while and then kind of came back again, and then Jeremy Renner when he was like scrawnier. He's like scrawny in this movie compared to how he is now as Hawkeye.
And he's like one of the shortest actors in the whole movie.
Yeah, he's like so tiny. It's like Michelle Rodriguez could like step on him.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's another good one. And so, we're never gonna say these movies are like deserve Oscars or whatever, but these are just movies that I think in some cases, like, I can understand why some people don't like them, but I feel like some of these movies people don't give a chance because everybody goes, it's terrible. Like here, I'm thinking like I haven't watched King Arthur, But Dakota is like starting to convince me that maybe I should give it a shot. And so here I'm even in this boat, of being that, where it's like maybe I should give it a shot. Maybe it is better than, even though a lot of people hated it. And so that's what we're saying with these movies is like, hey, just because the masses didn't give it a whole lot of love doesn't mean you may not like it. And so that's kind of what we're getting at with this. So we hope you enjoyed this episode. We're going to kind of bring it to a close before we get too long here. Unless you like long episodes, and that's where I'll just segue into. Let us know what you think about any of the ways we do our episodes or what we do in the episodes. You can do that on Facebook and Twitter. Leave comments on YouTube. With that being said, we hope you do subscribe to us on YouTube or iTunes or one of those places. And as I mentioned before, you can even listen to us through your Amazon Echo using the AnyPod skill or Stitcher or one of those things on there. Tell Alexa to play us, and we'll pop up, and you can listen to us while you're doing dishes or something, because I find we're very soothing to listen to while you're doing dishes and make that time just fly on by, because when we're doing these episodes, time just flies. So that's
true.
That's what we want to help you do, is just kind of get through those bummer times when you're riding in the car or doing dishes or any of those things. So we just thank you for listening, and we'll bring us to a close. So this is Steven.
This is Dakota.
Catch you later.